Hello, my name is Eric Powers, and I am your son or daughter's Earth and Space Science teacher for this year. This video is just a quick description on what the Flipped Mastery Classroom is. Our classroom is not like a traditional classroom that you and I grew up in. This is a completely different way of looking at it. So I want to let you guys know what a Flipped Mastery Classroom is before we get too far into the semester. So first off, let me go through what the difference is between a traditional and a flipped classroom is. So in a traditional classroom that we had growing up, first off, you had the teacher-centered classroom where the teacher was up front giving lectures, disseminating the information, and the students, sat quietly, asked questions sometimes, but mostly their job was to sit there, listen, and take notes. Then, after a full day of worth of classes, you went home, you worked on that assignment, that homework, using those notes you took in class, but you really didn't have a teacher or necessarily an expert nearby that you could ask if you run into trouble. All right? But in a flipped classroom, what we do is kind of take what you do at home and in school, and you just really flip it. We have pre-recorded video lectures that are not a full 40 minutes, but shortened down. Some are just a few minutes. The longest ones, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. But normally I try to keep them under 10 minutes in length, where the students watch at their own pace. They take their notes, write down questions at home or outside the classroom. And then when they return to class, all right, we discuss what they learned. We then allow the students to work on that knowledge with students or on their own. But the teacher is there in case they need some help. All right, that is a traditional classroom versus a flipped classroom. Some of the big advantages of just having a flipped classroom in this way, it increases the interaction between the student and the teachers or the student and their peers. It gives the student a lot of time to actually work on the assignments with each other so that they can help each other out. Or if they get really stuck, the teacher's there for them to rely on and to ask questions of. It allows that material to be placed online. All right, these video lectures, students can access them anywhere as long as they have internet access. And if you're gone, well, you don't necessarily get behind. You can watch those videos, access information online so that you don't get too far behind. The fact these videos are online then allows a student to watch them at their own pace. They don't have to keep up with the really fast note takers, or they don't have to be bored as people who like to write down every word, ask questions and take their time on their notes. They can pause in the middle of them. They can rewatch them if they are a visual or an auditory learner. But it also allows them, again, to just go at their own pace. Allows them to watch this material when they choose. A flipped mastery classroom then takes this and goes a little bit further. Since a student is allowed to go at their own pace, the way this class is going to work is that, again, first off, they are exposed to that new information through some kind of video, most likely outside of class on their own time. They get to choose when they learn this. Then, in class, they are applying and working with this new knowledge that they have in class, again, with this teacher there to help them along and facilitate that learning. And eventually, what this leads up to, just like in a normal classroom, is an assessment. But the difference here, again, is that they're moving at their own pace. Not everyone's going to be taking this assessment at the same time. Some will be working ahead, some will be working behind, but everyone will get to that assessment. And they will then need to show mastery. Now, a mastery means basically that they've earned at least a 70% on this assessment, which is usually somewhat of a traditional quiz. If they've mastered this material, they get to move on to the next section. If they don't, well, that's when we're going to do a little bit of corrective assessment, a little corrective activity. I'll either sit down with them and discuss what they've missed and what concepts that they're a little fuzzy on, or I can give them written feedback on quizzes so they can take a look at it. And just kind of rework the material over until they actually learn this material, get their assessment to a mastery level, and then move on. The big advantages that I like about this classroom is that, first, it causes the students to really learn the material. You can't just kind of learn it and move on. All right. A lot of things in science build on previous knowledge, so that if the foundation is not good, that means the further on, the more confused the student will be. All right. Here you have to show a minimum of understanding before moving on to the next step. It allows for differentiation. I can take students who are really doing well, and I can push them a little bit more and challenge them with slightly more in-depth type questions and learning. And the students that are struggling more, I can spend more class time working with them so that they can understand the material, and I can also adjust what types of questions and assessments they get. It forces also students to learn time management. Again, since they get to choose when they learn this material and what they're going to do somewhat in class, they can set their own schedules. This is really good for students who are student athletes or have a job that don't want to have homework over the weekend or don't want to have to do a VCAS when they're going to work late. Students also, I find, take more responsibility for their own education. They'll know, yeah, I didn't do so well on that quiz because I really didn't study for it. I'm going to study again. I'm going to take get a better grade on that. So I really enjoy that aspect of it. Students really determine that, yes, I can do this. I'm going to study here. I'm going to learn what I need to so I can move on to the next part. And some last little tips here that I have for students and for the parents. So this last slide here, just an area of how to be successful. Some tips for students and for the parents. So first off, students, you got to do the work. If you looked at the class rules, you would have seen in the grading that 100% of the points is based on the quizzes, the tests, and the projects. The little labs and assignments, the note checks, the taking the notes, all that stuff, those don't count for points. And I always get a question from the student who doesn't want to do that stuff. Why bother doing that? It doesn't count for points. Those notes, note checks, labs, assignments, activities, things we do in class that aren't for points are there so that you can learn. You're going to be applying that knowledge from your notes on those assignments, making your mistakes, checking that work and seeing what mistakes you made and learning from those. Super duper important that you always do the work. The way that the class is also set up, if you don't do those little assignments, you don't get to do the actual assessment, so you won't get any points. Got to do the work. Ask questions, super important. Some students are just really quiet. You cannot just sit back and not answer or ask any questions. You don't have to ask me necessarily. If you want to ask friends who have already gotten through the material or are working on the material at the same time, that's fine. I don't mind students working together and asking each other questions, and cooperative learning is very good. But if you're struggling, you got to ask me questions, whether that be in class or, since there's 30 students and sometimes it's hard for me to get to you at that exact moment, asking your friends in class, or you can come see me before school or after school to ask questions. But also don't give up. All students reach a point where they fall behind or struggle with some kind of quiz or concept, and they may have to take their assessment twice, possibly even 3 times. That's okay. Don't give up. All right. Come see me. We can talk about the assignments. Again, ask questions, but you really need to stay interactive with me if you're struggling. Parents, just talk to your child, see how they're doing. If they're struggling, you can send me a little note, email, voicemail, see if they are falling behind, and talk to them how really important it is to stay with the pace that I suggest for them so they don't fall behind. You can also keep an eye on their progress by checking on PowerSchool. The due dates that are in PowerSchool are the dates that I expect them, if they keep pace, when they should get those done. All right, so that wraps up this video. I hope you kind of understand what the Flipped Mastery Classroom is like. If you have any more questions or comments or concerns, shoot me an email, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can.